I got summoned into Russian military. It happened last month, and I was obviously hesitant to make this video, but well, here we are. And right now I want to share with you this story, as well as to give you some of my own insights about what I personally think about this partial mobilization. What's up, investors? It's the Russian dude. So, if you remember, back in September, Putin announced this so-called partial mobilization with the only goal to recruit 300,000 people, with the only goal to basically change the course of war. And even though this was supposed to be a, once again, partial mobilization, a lot of people, including my friends and me personally, we got our own summons as well. Some people left the country, someone started hiding inside Russia, while the others, who got less lucky, they were actually sent into Ukraine. But more about this a little bit later, because somewhere approximately in October-November, the military enlistment office representatives, they actually came to my parents' apartment and were looking for me. And by the way, I think it is worth mentioning that the way this conscription thing works in Russia is that if you do not receive your summon documents personally, you're not legally obliged to show up in the military enlistment office. So long story short, they came after me, and if at that moment I was in my apartment, I will have basically two options. Either be sent into Ukraine, or in the worst case scenario, go to jail. Not too much choices for a Russian man, right? But it was even worse for some of my friends. Several of them were visited by these military representatives right at their work, pretty much the same morning after this partial mobilization was announced. And I mean, just imagine this. You're driving in your car to work, you just heard the news, and you think, what would you do if you are the one who will be conscripted during this mobilization? And as soon as you arrive to your work, not being able to think about pretty much anything, even before the lunch starts, you hear some unfamiliar voices, you turn around, and you see some people in the military uniform asking for your name and establishing the eye contact with you. And remember, once you receive these military summons documents in person, you're now legally obliged to show up in the nearest military enlistment office, or you'll be criminally prosecuted. Just talk about how your life can change in literally several seconds. And well, unfortunately, some of them indeed had to go and face their destiny, while the others hired lawyers or made documents saying that their work is essential, while the others just simply left the country the same day, just hoping for the best. But then, and you might have heard about this, Russian government realized that a lot of men started leaving the country, so they had to bring these mobile enlistment offices literally next to the borders with neighboring countries. And in this case, if you get caught, this is one of the worst things that can happen to you, because you're just literally a couple of meters away from freedom, and in the very last moment you get caught. Or what if you're trying to escape after receiving your military documents in person, and in this case, if you get caught, you are immediately criminally charged, and basically no matter what happens next, it's gonna be one thing or another, it's gonna be just worst case scenario. And I mean, yeah, if you are against the war, you can always select the best of two evils and just go to jail. But I'm pretty positive that at this point, most of you already heard about Wagner. And if you haven't, this is basically a private military company created by a very influential person in Russia, Yevgeny Prigozhin, and allegedly it recruits prisoners into its ranks. And yeah, supposedly they are offered to join Wagner, which kinda makes it voluntarily, I would say, but at the same time I will not be surprised if some of these prisoners were blackmailed into being forced to enlist into Wagner. For this reason, even if you decide avoid going to war by just going to jail, you might still end up being sent into Ukraine. And what's even worse, you'll be sent into the worst parts of it, like the east and Bakhmut, where the chances of survival are extremely low. And this especially taking into consideration these stories that sometimes Russians were sending its new recruits to the front lines after just a couple of weeks or even days of military training. So basically, yeah, as you can see, there was nothing partial about this partial mobilization. Almost every single male friend that I have, relatively in my age group, got a visit from military representatives. 300,000 alleged conscripts represent only less than 1% of able-bodied men of Russia. But, judging by how many guys actually got their summons, in reality, most likely, this number was way higher. And if you want to stay updated on my story, as well as to receive daily updates on Russian-Ukrainian war, just please subscribe to my channel. Thank you so much for your attention, товарищи, and see you tomorrow.